Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the coziest part of Solana's finest podcast, or rather, markets, prices, charts, and technical analysis. We're going to dive into the markets. We're going to take a look at where Solana's at and where it might go next. Welcome to the show, and thanks for co-hosting this section with me. How's it going?
It's going pretty well, except I'm looking at the charts and they're a little green today. But in the broader context, we are down bad, my friend.
Yeah, we saw almost $120 sold last week. 121.35 to be exact was the low that we printed, and I don't think people saw that coming really. So there's a lot of confusion in the market right now, and it's actually crazy how bearish it is. It is. I don't know how aware you are, but the fear and greed index, it's an indicator for sentiment, right? Like how are people looking at the market? And it is below 10, and it's below FTX crash low. So and you remember that time? Back then. It was like we're dead. It was $8 Solana. It's over. People were literally quitting, and companies were going bankrupt and all that shit. And right now, nothing really happened. And I think that is the problem. Like, people are so confused why the sentiment is so low, because nothing really happened, and prices are actually not that much down, and we're going to take a look at that. But yeah, it's wild to me how negative the sentiment is right now.
Yeah, I remember looking at the fear and greed index a few days ago, and it did not match with my fear and greed. Like I felt like the market is very much overreacting to where we
Yeah.
are. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We should obviously. I'm going to pull up your screen over here so we can look at these lovely little numbers. But yeah, if we look at the
It's
historical
being read.
crypto fear and greed index over time, I think this is going back. Okay, so. This is tracking all
Yeah,
the way to August, so a few months ago.
let's do max.
Sentiment was
So
yes,
this shows us like where we right now hit, and I mean we saw it early this year in February, where we had a big dump right after all that craziness of the year start. But that was the last time we saw like such low numbers, and then we go back all the way here into 2022, where we saw it as well happening. But yeah, it's fairly low, and you can also see that every time we are at these lower stages, there's some movement to the upside coming along, right? Like, it doesn't stay here long. That is something to keep in mind as well.
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do think that there are things to be worried about. Okay, we're not doing so poorly today. But yeah, I do feel like there is a gross overreaction by the market. In fact, I was much more afraid during the tariff wars, right? Because I was very
Yeah.
unsure how that was going to play out. And Trump always chickens out. So
Yeah.
he reneged on a lot of his tariff warmongering. Some of it still remains true, but he's walked back a lot of that. Using it
Mm-hmm.
more as a bargaining chip than anything else. But Simon, let's not babble on for too long. I definitely want to look at the charts. So what are we looking at here?
Exactly, because honestly, whatever happens in the world out there and whatever fundamental news are moving the markets, one thing we can always do is we can look at how is price moving, and we can structure the chart. An unstructured chart, like without any indicators and without any theories overlaid, it doesn't tell us a lot, because it is just a historical indicator of number that went up and down. And it leaves us with confusion, really, right? But as soon as we start to apply some analysis strategies on top of it, and I wouldn't put too many on it, otherwise it gets confusing. But pick your one or two or three indicators that you feel like have worked for you, or you feel like make sense to you, and then apply these to the chart to make sense of it. And I personally feel that's why I talk about it every single TA. That simple indicators like resistance levels, volume zones, and liquidation levels, paired together with Elliott wave theory, give us a very good idea of the market structure, really, because it helps me to make sense of what's happening. Because without the Elliott waves, I don't really know where we are. But right now, the TLDR of what I'm about to explain here is that we might have seen the low for this current stretch here. Why might? Because I never know 100%, but I can apply probabilities based on elliott wave strategies and targets, price targets based on FIB levels to the chart. So looking back here real quick, so you understand where I'm coming from, we had the last high that we printed at $250 back in September, when the world looked still okay. And then from there, you remember maybe where people are like, okay, we're never going to see Sol below $200 again, yada, yada, yada. So that didn't really work out. So from there, we pulled back and we did a corrective ABC structure. And that is the big A down here, the big B up here, and then there's the C extension down here. The C wave extension can be also found by printing a FIB extension, the 100% FIB extension of the ABC structure here. So we take this low, we take this high from the B wave, and we draw an extension line to the chart based on FIBs, and that brings us to $123.92, which is pretty much where the price landed approximately. A few wicks shoot it below it, but if we go in the 4-hour chart here and we look at this, how it played out, actually no 4-hour candle closed below this level, the red line. So that red line here. And that means that, the C wave could be completed technically. Now looking into the microstructures, because that is also very relevant to see if that's also indicating completion, we could technically argue as well that it indicates completion, because we have here a broader wave 1 to the downside, a wave 2 recovery, then an impulse. This is the wave 3 here. And then we have consolidation sideways, and then we have a final flush, which is the 5th wave to the downside in the circle, right? So that also technically looks like completed. And then zooming even further in, we can go into the 15 minutes chart to really make sense of where we are right now. In the micro count here, we can also track a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decline. That was the 3rd wave here in brackets. And then we went sideways. That's where I was already considering, okay, are we going to turn around here or not? But it wasn't my primary scenario, because I knew that the 3rd wave needs the 5th wave low to be considered complete. So I was watching the sideways move here a lot, because we saw a big breakout here, and that was I think last week when Nvidia announced some numbers, and it looked better than people expected. So everything recovered a little bit, but only for a short period of time. And it wasn't, the bulls weren't there yet. It was just this little breather in between. But then I count it as an A, B, C structure, which totally makes sense for a 4th wave. We went into this resistance area up here, and then went all the way down again into a lower low, surpassing the 3rd wave here and landing at where we are now, basically, right? And then after this, and we can also see it in the chart, in the movement of the price right now, it is messy. It is not. I can't track anything here really. It makes no sense what's happening here to the price right now. But that for me is also a sign that there's actually right now max confusion in the market, because people are thinking, okay, the low might be in. I don't want to miss the low right now, so they keep buying spot positions, or even leverage position, opening leverage positions. And the bears are still pushing to the downside, but I think the bulls have a chance now to turn this around, because we have all waves completed, micro counts, sub counts, macro counts, and we are right now also on the Bitcoin chart in a heavily oversold territory, with the RSI printing 22.96, which is also insanely low. And last time when I did a quick TA with on YouTube here, where you haven't been part of, I told people that looking at the RSI on the Bitcoin chart, every time you see this vertical line here, the RSI made a significant low. But you can also see that every time that happened, the price recovered at some point, either briefly, right, or substantially, right? But it never stayed down there. Especially, and it doesn't even matter if we're in a bull and a bear market, by the way. If we're in a bear market and the RSI goes below 30 and significantly, it will do a little recovery rally. If we're in a bull market, it might actually print the freaking banana zone that Raoul Powell is talking about since eternity. And he got a point. He actually got a point, because I do think, and we can hop out of the charts, I think I remember. Do you remember when we talked about the banana zone for the first time, like ages
Yeah,
ago?
yeah, no, yes, I do.
And the theory seemed a little bit ambitious, especially because the bull market right now was fucking weak. Like it just was a slow and steady up, right? So we didn't
Hmm.
take an elevator, right? We just climbed the hill the past year. So it was really like a slow, steady climb of the price. Banana zone, route parts, banana zone means, okay, we're seeing um, very hyper active price movements that are, parabolic. And we haven't seen that at all. So people kind of lost faith a little bit. But what you always said as well is that we will see a substantial bear trap kind of scenario where the prices go lower than people expect before that actually plays out. And he's been talking about this since a while. So to an extent, he was right because it's literally happening right now. Like we saw the price moving up over time. We saw new all time highs, but then right now we're washing out a lot of people. A lot of it's like billions. I think $40 billion of leverage has been wiped out of the markets.
Hmm.
Historically, never seen before. By the way, like in this month, in this short time, and that is why people got so spooked. Because the amount of liquidations and the amount of money we're right now taking out of the system is insane. But just looking back, it always found its way back to the upside. That's why I posted the other week that bears sound smart because whenever the price goes down, they sound like, "Oh, I told you so." But bulls make money because the price always finds its way to the upside eventually. So if you
Hmm.
just hold onto your assets, you're printing. So, yeah, do you think we're going to see the bananas on?
Well, I do believe that the only way to make real generational wealth is to take the non-consensus bet, right? That doesn't mean that all non-consensus bets are winners, right? Like
Point.
certainly not every like if not everybody believes in a certain meme coin or a shit coin, that doesn't make it by definition the next runner, right? But it is
Mm,
absolutely true that the outsized returns always come from non-consensus bets. So what that means in this context is that everyone thinks that bull markets as we remember them in the past are gone, and that's just
mm,
because people have short-term memory. Am I calling the bottom here? Absolutely not financial advice. That is not what we do on the show. But if one were a betting man or a gambling person, you
mm,
need to look for that non-consensus bet. And personally, I think that I mean, I have a much longer time horizon than I think most folks. I think you do as well. So
mm,
I think that there is a bottom to buy sometime in the next few months. By few months, I'm meaning probably like 1 or 2 months. Um, could there be an even deeper bottom in 3, 4 months? Absolutely. I don't know what the future looks like, but the point that I'm trying to
mm,
make is that it's not bad to take a deep breath and kind of look at what the price is looking at, and if you have gunpowder, you might want to consider deploying some of that capital at a bottom that you see fit, right? Like maybe think right now
correct.
what would be a price that you would be absolutely stoked to buy at. I just as
Mm,
for the sake of argument, I would be very happy to buy $80 Soul like today, right? Like if it were like I don't know
mm,
how I would feel if Soul was actually $80, but I'm just saying, from first principles, I think that $80 Soul is a no brainer. Some people might
yeah,
even have a bit of a higher price target, but if
yeah.
you see an asset that you love at a bargain fire sale prices, why not? I also saw that you brought on the banana zone charts. Do you want to pull that up real quick?
Just real quick, yeah, to kind of show where we might be at right now. Like Ralph Paul kind of put this out, and he says that the Bitcoin cycle usually has a banana zone coming in where the price goes parabolic, and then here we have like a correction phase number one where the price tries to break out, but then it doesn't, and people get washed out and they get they're losing hope. But then there's another push that's coming, and then again same shit happens, correction phase two, and then another push that happens. So it's not a straight line to the upside. At least it was at the beginning. Almost it was one straight to the upside in 2013 here. But then every time after that, whenever it happened again, there were always these correction phase in the middle. And right now we are here, right? So
Yeah.
it's a point you could make, right? The charts do look similar, if you put it out in that fashion here.
Hmm.
But obviously it's not a great indicator in my opinion. But it does add to all the other fundamental facts that I'm looking at, like the oversold RSI, like the Elliott waves that are still pointing at a potential another push to the upside and so on.
Yes.
So yeah, there's chance.
Yes, there's definitely a chance. We have some viewers who also feel this way. We have Super Simon, the lead of Super Team Canada, here on stream, and he says, Simon is giving me hopium.
Which one? Which
Well,
Simon?
we
Himself?
what? Probably both, right? Bullish on Canada
Okay.
and bullish on the Banana Zone. But
One
anywho,
Simon.
that has been some of the chart action that we're looking at for this week. But in addition to the charts, Simon, we also have some macro news that we love to cover. Things that are going on in the world that may or may not affect the charts. We don't really know. It's all a spider web of information. But one thing that we'd love to talk about is we have a pretty good week incoming, right? We have
Yep.
PPI inflation, which is going to be reported tomorrow. We have
Mm-hmm.
jobs claims or jobless claims the day
Mm-hmm.
after. On the same day, PCE, and then on the 27th, market close because Thanksgiving, and then early close on Friday. But the point
Yep.
being is that we have some really interesting data that's going to be coming out this week. And depending on how that fares, we'll see how our longer term economic policy will be in the United States.
Exactly. And I think the fact that the week is shortened because of Thanksgiving is also something to keep in mind. Like usually that adds volatility because traders are trying to close the week already earlier than Friday. So that will impact the markets, but much more the PPI and CPI data is gonna and PCE is gonna impact it. But because all these printings are inflation related, so the PCE, actually the personal consumption expenditure, is the Fed's preferred inflation gauge. They're looking at the PCE preferably because it covers a broader basket of goods and services that households actually buy. So it's a more realistic idea of where inflation is at. Because you need to keep in mind inflation, it's difficult really to really know, right? It's always a basket
Yeah.
of data points that you're looking at. But like the true inflation is almost impossible to know. So they're always trying to get the closest, right? The best one. So if you combine PPI and PCE, and we have both this week, you get a good idea. And if inflation is right now remains sticky or even goes higher, that would be not so good for risk assets, and it would decrease the chance for further rate cuts, which we are currently ideally looking for if we are holding any risk assets, which most of us do. So like a rate cut is right now still like the chances are going slightly up over the weeks right now for December rate cut, but it's still fairly balanced with no rate cut. So we need to see a few more data points here. And a lot of these data points that are coming in right now are also delayed due to the government shutdown that we experienced in the past few weeks. So there might be some jumps in what we expect and what the actual data is going to look like. So yeah, what I recommend is just keep an eye on these things. And obviously, if you see the price chart this week move a lot in any direction, then it might be sparked by some of these data points. But also keep in mind that this data is usually never really impacting the price of an asset in the long term. It just sparks inflation in volatility of the price in the short term, but then it smooths out again after a few days. So it can be traded, but it's difficult to trade. I would probably be very careful with that. But it will tell us at least the direction of where we're heading, which might be either up if inflation is less sticky and goes down, and if job markets need a bit more of a push, then that might be good for risk assets, and we might see a December that is more bullish than the November was so far. And yeah, that's
Yeah.
what's
Repeating that
up
one
on the
time
macro. Yeah.
for our folks in the back, if you do see a lot of volatility this week, perhaps click pause for a second. You don't have to jump right into the action. The prices will smooth out as they always do. But yes, it might be a bit of a spiky week. And in fact, looking a little bit more on the brighter side of the fence, let's call it a glass half full scenario. We have some really interesting macro setup in the next couple of months. So, number one, Trump wants to have these, I think he called them tariff revenue share, if I remember correctly. It's like revenue share from all the supposedly, right? Really, what it is just
Yeah, like
printing money.
dividends. I think he
Yes.
said
Oh,
it's
yes.
dividends.
Tariff dividends, right? So
Yeah.
those are $2,000 stimulus checks, somewhat similar to what we saw during COVID. Japan also has a 110 billion stimulus package ready. China has already deployed $1.4 trillion. I want some more specifics on that. I'm wondering where China exactly deployed that money. The
Mhm.
U.S. is issuing $1.9 trillion in treasuries annually. Stable coins, I think, are not a small part of that anymore. Actually, it's quite a large percentage of the treasuries that are being issued on an annual basis. The Fed is ending QT. Canada has restarted QE, and the global M2 money supply is sitting at record highs. So essentially, what
Mm.
this means in aggregate is that major economies all around the world are injecting liquidity at the same time.
Mhm.
And when money starts to move, looks like crypto might be one of the main beneficiaries.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see if that money finds its way into the crypto markets. But also we're quite correlated right now with Nasdaq and S&P. So I think we need to see that all go up one more time in order to really feel that liquidity coming in. But it feels realistic to me, honestly. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. And Super Simon asks, does America's 51st state, Canada, also get a cut of those stimmy checks? Unfortunately, not. I think you guys actually owe us a couple of tariffs.
Great.
Where do you think the money's coming from, bro? Well, that concludes, of course, the coziest part of the podcast where we talk about not only the charts, but also some of the macroeconomic news around the world so that you can make some informed decisions for yourself, do your own research about the price. But, Simon, it's time to move on
Yep.
to our favorite part of the podcast. So, take it away.
Exactly. So if you enjoy that kind of content, please let us know as well. Like leave a like on that video here and leave a comment as well, and subscribe to Soul Brothers, and make sure to check out our other videos where we are talking more about Solana ecosystem news, which you can also find on our channel. So yeah, please feel free to check out also these other videos. Thank you so much.